Nigeria saves over 24 billion naira from Treasury single account TSA. Now, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to join other leaders in South Africa to chart the way forward for the continent's private sector development. Plus, rice importation drops by 16.3% in the second quarter of 2018. Good to have you join us on this midweek edition of Business Express. I am Amina Nujaim. Welcome to the program. Nigeria saves 24.7 billion naira monthly as a result of the implementation of the Treasury Single Account TSA scheme, the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System IPPIS, and the Bank Verification Number BVN, among other measures. President Muhammadu Buhari said the administration was serious about the fight against corruption, considering the giant strides it had recorded and the huge sums of money recovered and saved from investments in infrastructure and other sectors of the economy. The president said this at the 2018 edition of the E-Nigeria conference held in Abuja recently, said about 1.6 billion naira was recovered from one single account through the TSA. He said he issued Executive Order 003 and 005 to ensure that government agencies patronize locally manufactured ICT products, and they show strong commitment at strengthening the role of science and technological innovations in the development of the country. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is scheduled to participate in an exclusive event for heads of state and the selection of business executives on moving forward Africa's private sector development under the Chatham House rules. This is part of a series of events the Vice President will be attending at the 2018 Africa Investment Forum in Johannesburg, South Africa, beginning from Thursday this week. The Africa Investment Forum, which is an innovation of the Africa Development Bank, is dedicated to advancing projects to bankable stages, raising capital and accelerating the financial closure of deals. A two-day training program for media practitioners on the Open Government Partnership, which President Muhammadu Buhari joined as part of measures to fight corruption and improve the economy, is on in Lokoja. Let's join Muhammad Ali for an update. Hello, Muhammad. What is the training about?
Thank you very much, Studio. This is the Nigerian Hotel and Lokoja venue for the training, two-day training for journalists, generally media practitioners, and print and electronic media on the Open Government Partnership, which Nigeria subscribed to in 2006 when President Muhammadu Buhari at the Anti-Corruption Summit in the United Kingdom said Nigeria is going to join, and barely a month after that declaration, Nigeria actually set its data content, and Nigeria was admitted in the same year. Now the Open Government Partnership seeks to promote four basic ideas of fiscal transparency, anti-corruption, access to information, and citizens' participation. The government seeks to identify local problems and then offer local solutions meeting international standards, to also see how that will address the problems. After addressing the problems, there are also mechanisms for assessing the problem, and that is whether implementation has solved the problem. That is judging results against plans, and this is very, very important for the Nigerian government because it seeks to promote the economy in particular through the fighting of corruption and other practices that will not be of benefit to the country. So far here we have about 35 journalists across the country from different media organizations, print and electronic.
Thank you, Mohammed Ali in Lokoja, and we apologize for the poor quality of that audio. Now, efforts of the federal government to stop importation and increase local production and consumption of rice as well as other commodities is paying off as Nigeria records reduced rice imports in 2018. Musa Abubakar reports that these strides have been attributed to concerted efforts of the Ministry of Agriculture and interventions of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The inability of farmers to meet local demand for rice translated into a huge import bill for Nigeria until recently. Effort put in place by the federal government include measures to access foreign exchange and anchor borrower scheme designed to boost local rice production. The policy, however, is yielding the desired goal. Reports by the Central Bank of Nigeria showed the volume of rice importation into Nigeria has declined drastically in 2018, backed by figures obtained from India and Thailand, which are major rice exporters to Nigeria. A combined 5,587 metric tons of rice was exported by the two countries as at September 2018, indicating a far cry from thousands of metric tons imported in the past.
Musa Abubakar there. Ademola Ogunkunle, a financial and business consultant, joins us now to discuss the drop in rice importation and the way forward. It is a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, viewers.
The figures by CBN shows that importation of rice into the country has reduced drastically in 2018. What does this mean for the Nigerian economy?
Well, basically, this means that the scarce foreign resources are available to be allocated to other areas that actually need them. What it also means is that since there is no more importation of rice through the official means, why do I say that? Since the importers of rice don't have the access to the foreign exchange, which is quite cheaper than getting it from other sources, they cannot import and compete. So that gives the avenue to the local producers, you know, to have their products more in the market, and then the competition is off.
Now you're talking about local production. The Central Bank of Nigeria did say that they did not allocate foreign exchange for importation of rice. Would you attribute this to the drop in importation of rice into Nigeria?
Of course, because they won't get, the importers will not get the forex at the official rate. So if they need to import, they need to source elsewhere. And that sourcing elsewhere means at a higher cost. So if they go ahead to import at a higher cost, the market is not going to be able to absorb the higher cost because they're going to pass it to the retail price of the various of the rice they are importing.
But then if they are importing the rice still at a higher cost, they are still importing it.
Well, they are importing it, but who's going to buy? Because if you have the local producers meeting the demand at a particular level, like it's been happening between Kebbi and Lagos State, the prices will remain at a level which people can afford. Because I remember there was a time the prices dropped to 15,000, upward of when it was about 30,000. Everybody shunned the imported rice and went for the local rice that was selling at 15,000 per bag. So the market gets to determine, you know, what they want to buy because of the price.
Apart from the foreign exchange not being available, what would you say can be responsible for discouraging importation of rice?
Well, we need to discourage the importation because Nigeria has the capacity to produce enough rice and even export it. Are you following me? So the policies have to be in place that those who import would not have a free rein to import, because the importation actually kills the local producers, the local industry, kills the local farmer. You know, the capacity and the value chain gets discouraged down the line. So if the foreign exchange, because the measure, if the forex is not available for importation, it means nobody's encouraged to import, because every businessman wants to make a profit. So if you don't get the forex at the right rate for you to be able to sell your product at a good price, which the market will be able to absorb, you're going to drop it. Because you would rather channel your resources to other means are more profitable.
Now that the focus is on local production, would you say local production has increased?
Well, there's a need to build, because basically
like the
now,
Kebbi rice, the Abakaliki rice, the
Abakaliki
Lagos rice.
For now, we can produce rice in about 34 states in the country. And the local, demand for rice is about 7.9 million tons per annum. But the local production, according to the Farmer Rice Growers Association, is about 6 million. So there's a shortfall of about 1.9 million or thereabout. That capacity needs to be, needs to be covered. But how does it happen? The government has to provide the enabling environment. The local producers need to be encouraged. There has to be, the value chain needs to be strengthened. What do I mean? They are the local farmers. The CBN introduced the scheme for about 12 million, paddy rice farmers. It's not just to plant the rice. There's the next level, which is the milling. And that's another level of business. Now, all we have for now are the local millers. And you know what it means to mill locally? The rice does not come out well and all that. So there's a need for the government to have more resources injected into the area. Maybe what should have gone into the importation, into the forex allocation, should go into encouraging the local, the local industry. Let me call it industry now, because the local industry, from the production up to the final moment when the rice is on the table. So it involves the farmers, it involves the marketers, it involves the bag producers that's going to do the packaging. It involves, what we want to eliminate, maybe the middlemen. But it also involves the chain of storage and all that. Then we need to also, encourage those who are going to be the traders in the rice, because the millers are not going to be the ultimate sellers. So there has to be the policy to have those who will be, rather than import, why don't you invest in buying off, the already produced rice and sell it. Then you make your margin. So if the market is there, if the rice producer and the millers are sure that we have somebody who's going to be an off-taker, who's going to get the rice off us, has the capacity to store it and reach the market, the value chain is increased and then is encouraged.
Okay. The president, in his New Year message of 2018, did announce the ban on rice. Would you attribute that to the reduction in importation of rice?
Yes, it's something to announce. I think what was announced was the plan to ban. But it takes more than that. It's number one, the will has to be there, which Mr. President had clearly said in his broadcast. We have the plan to ban. Fine. But it takes a lot more than that. It takes a lot because we need to get the statistics right. Because right now there are so many statistics being bandied around. We need to get the statistics right. We need to know the actual demand, because I've just given a figure of the national demand for rice. That's by a group. Now, what Bureau of Statistics will most probably give you another figure. Are you following me? So we need to get all that right. What's the actual demand for rice? What's our actual capacity for rice? When you have determined that, the government now goes ahead to say, look, who are those who are going to be involved at the various levels? Who are going to be who are the farmers? How do we encourage them? Remember, there's the local paddy farmers, there's the local farmers, and there's the big-time farmers, and the big industries who have the capacity to plant and also to mill. If you go to Abakaliki, you have the local farmers. You also have the local mills located within the vicinity. So all those have to be strengthened along the line. What do they have? The capacity has to be increased in terms of infrastructure. You have to create the enabling environment. You have to make the business environment good for them. The power has to be there. All the supportive, processes by the Ministry of Agriculture has to be there. The river basins have to be enlightened, have to be brought alive again. Like I said, we have the capacity in 34 states, and you can grow rice 3 times a year, because the cycle is just 3 months.
Now that we've recorded reduction in importation of rice, in terms of sustainability, what can be done?
What can be done is just what I've analyzed. The government has to now go ahead to support the local rice industry, because we need to start with the local rice industry. Like I said, 34 states are there. Look at the initiative in Kebbi, look at the initiative in Ebonyi State, Kano is on the line, and many others. So the state governments have to have that initiative to encourage and empower their local farmers. Once you have done that, have an off-take platform for them. Because the problem is you produce the rice, you get it to the miller, then who's going to buy? Except the government comes up with a supported structure. We had the produce mills in those days, the produce industries, I've forgotten what we use now, that take them off, that takes products off the local farmer and put it in a storage where people who want to trade in can go there and buy. If I'm sure that if I plant, the government is going to take it off me, or I'm going to get a buyer that's readily available, I won't be afraid to plant.
One of the challenges that comes to mind right now is smuggling. Government is making efforts to reduce importation of rice. Smugglers are at it. Constant seizures of smuggled rice are impounded in warehouses. What's the way?
We cannot, in every economy the smugglers are there, but it takes the will of the government and the strength. We have very porous borders. We have very porous borders. And because we have the porous borders, I believe the customs department their capacity needs to be increased. Now, you said they are actually seized in the warehouses, which means they have found their way into the country.
Yes.
So the question is, where did they come from? How did they get there? They went through the Nigerian roads. They came in through the Nigerian border, and they didn't go in wheelbarrows. They went in trailer loads.
Some of them are smuggled through bikes.
I wonder how many bikes are going to fill a warehouse. Now, but then that's the truth. They come in through the borders, so we need to strengthen our capacity at the borders to monitor them, to monitor the smugglers and discourage them. Because you find out that most of these rice are even smuggled, don't meet the standard of those produced locally. Then we Nigerians have to change our taste. And the government has to start it itself. Ban rice, imported rice in the various state houses, at various state functions. Encourage the local buyer. We Nigerians have to develop a taste also for the local rice. Until we do, the imported rice will continue to be to come in, and we look at it as a thing of luxury. It's not a luxury.
Now, in closing, we have been talking about importation of rice and reduction of importation of rice. What efforts do you think should be done to check the importation of other commodities into the country?
Well, just like I said, the capacity of the customs and excise department has to be increased. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't want the whole brief for them. Maybe their capacity to check the porous borders has to be increased. Maybe their constant surveillance of the warehouses and also their surveillance network to get information on goods that have escaped their radar, should also be increased. So that even if they have found their way into the country, they can still be caught, at the various storage points.
Thank you, Ademola Ogunkunle, a financial and business consultant. It has been a pleasure having you on the program Business Express today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Now moving on, highlights from the PwC's annual Africa Oil Gas Review released at the 25th Africa Oil Week Conference 2018 in Cape Town shows that the outlook for Africa's oil gas industry is positive amid difficult operating and economic headwinds. The report says tough economic and external conditions have placed pressure on oil gas companies to be more cost-effective and efficient. Companies have adopted a low-cost environment which promises to be even more beneficial given the current recovering oil price. In its review, the PwC says as the oil price is steadily rising towards pre-collapse levels, the outlook for the industry is hopeful. It is, however, important for companies to avoid falling into the cost inflation trap that would eat into the profitability gains that should follow from the rising oil price. Keeping up capital discipline and further improving productivity will yield sustained results for the industry. As the outlook for the oil industry is hopeful, let's take a look at the price of oil and other commodities in the global market. The federal government on Tuesday closed its case in the suit it filed to recover a sum of 110 million from Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited in the suit filed before the Federal High Court in Lagos. The federal government accused the oil giant of under-declaring the volume of crude oil it shipped out of the country between January 2011 and December 2014. The federal government alleged that Ajib shortchanged it to the tune of $55 million. The government is praying the courts to compel the oil firm to pay the $55 million with an annual interest of 21%. Now, the Nigerian Stock Exchange has lifted the suspension it placed on trading in the shares of Premier Paints PLC and 3 other firms more than a year ago. The Head Listings Regulations and Department NSC in a statement says the firms including EcoCorp PLC, Austin Lars Company PLC and Academy Press PLC were suspended for failure to adhere to best corporate governance and practices and refusal to submit their accounts and operational report. He said the suspension was lifted after companies submitted their respective financial statements. Now, the Nigerian Stock Exchange O-Share Index today, Wednesday, the 7th of November, is in the red. It slipped by 0.14% to close at 32,108.30 basis points, with market capitalization also dropping to 11.7 trillion naira. How are the markets trending in some key African nations and beyond? Let's have the numbers as presented by Bosede Abel.
Trading in Africa's stock markets in the early hours of Wednesday, 7th November were mixed, with South Africa's FTSE JSE Africa Top 40 posting gains by 1.09% and Namibia Overall Index also gaining 0.01%, while Nairobi All-Share, Tunisia's Tunidex and Ghana's GSE Composite Index started trading low. European stocks traded higher as investors digested the first result in the United States midterm elections. While in Asia, stocks markets were relatively muted in the afternoon of Wednesday as results filtered in from the much anticipated midterm United States elections in major indices. Meanwhile, stocks in the United States rose in the early morning of Wednesday as the U.S. midterm elections played out just as investors expected, with the Democrats winning back the House of Representatives and splitting the Congress.
Thank you, Bosede. How much is the Nigerian currency, the Naira, exchanging for other international currencies like the dollar and euro? Let's take a look. That brings us to the end of the program for today. But please do remember to send us your feedback via email businessexpress@nta.gov.ng. You can also reach us through our Twitter handle, and the hashtag is BusinessX. Now, don't forget to use BizX, showing on your screen now. On behalf of the entire production crew, I am Amina Nujaim, thanking you for staying tuned. Have a pleasant day.